Hey guys, welcome to In the Lobby, and I am Pastor Jimmy, and obviously this is not Pastor Mark. You are much hotter than Pastor Mark. I can't remember your name, like
Julie.
Oh, Julie. Okay. Yes. Well, I don't know if anybody
Julie.
ever told you before, but you're very attractive.
Thanks. My husband thinks so.
I'll have to meet that guy one day. So,
He's okay.
I'm sure all you're like, enough, guys. All right, come on. It's enough that we have to deal with this every other Sunday. But this is my wife, and Julie Lloyd, and this is a big treat because I got her up here to do In the Lobby. And we talked about it, and throughout the week, that was the whole plan, but I wasn't sure because you never know, like when you're going to back out of something,
Well,
and
I
then
did keep asking, have you talked to Mark? Have you talked
So-
to Mark?
yeah. So I just didn't talk to Mark, so then you would just be like,
On
you have to
purpose.
do it, yeah. So if not, I would have had to throw Brandon up here,
Oh,
and then he would have had to do the whole, doing the production and up here for In the Lobby.
that would have been awesome to see.
And also this time, Brandon actually hooked up a microphone so he can talk. Brandon, you want to say hi?
Hi, everybody.
So that is
Hi,
Brandon.
Brandon.
Hey.
Now, here's the thing. He kind of went out on his own and set up this microphone, and now it just kind of all clicked, like why he's doing all this. He's it's like a hostile takeover.
I can take over anytime I want.
Yeah, he could. Like he's he's the one that really has the power here, because
Yes,
just
he
by a
has all the
switch he could
power.
turn us off. He could throw whatever he wants up here on the screen.
You can put the cameras on selfie mode.
So yeah, so this could end up being a show called In the Sound Booth with Brandon. So I think that's his ultimate plan. So maybe next week that's what it will be. But no, we appreciate everything Brandon does with this. It wouldn't be possible without him. But so thank you guys so much for joining in. I know last week Pastor Chantel and Jackie filled in, and they did a great In the Lobby, really a great job with the subject of why worship.
Yep.
And we enjoyed it. We were listening to it while we were watching it, listening to it while setting up bedroom furniture.
Yes.
So that's what we were doing. But so good stuff. So we'll try to do as good as they did, see how it goes. I think that you had a song planned that you're going to sing, and
No.
you're like, I could sing way better than Chantel.
I never
I think that
said
was your
that.
exact words.
Nope.
You're like, yeah, she has nothing on me, and I'm going to show her this Friday In the Lobby. No? Was that not you that said that?
That was not me that said that.
Must have been somebody else. We'll have to find
It was
that person.
probably,
Brandon.
like,
It's probably Brandon, yes. Yeah, that's why he has the microphone.
Yeah.
He's gonna, at the end, Brandon. You don't want to tune us off because at the end of this, Brandon just may sing a song and try to show up Chantel. So he may. So that only works if you're watching this live, because if you're watching it after that, then you can just go to the end and see it. Like, that guy's not singing at all. So, how should we start this? I mean, I know we were going to talk about marriage, which is, we're married, so that'd be something obvious that you talk about.
Yeah.
But, most people that are watching, especially if they're from Farallon, they know all about me because every other Sunday I share stories about me and different things, and it's pretty much all about me.
Pretty much.
So
That's like that at
no,
home, too.
No, it's not. But how about you? Why don't you share? Maybe some people, they're like, "Whoa, he's married."
They
No, I
would
think they
never
know.
think
Yeah,
that.
they would never think I'm married.
No, they would never not think that you're not married.
Yeah, I know. But a lot of people that's watching, whether they're from the church or not from the church, they may not know a whole lot about you. So why don't we start that off just about you and where you're from and just whatever else that you might want to share, some background.
Okay. Well, I am from Kentucky. I'm from Louisville. I was born and raised for 30 years there in Kentucky, and it's a nice change of pace from the big city being here. And I met you here, so I definitely don't regret moving here. I don't know. I'm in school for human services to work with youth and family as of right now. So we'll see what happens with that. I'm married to you, which is a lot of work and a lot of laughing when you don't think something's funny.
You don't have to do that. I'm always funny.
No. You're the funniest person you know.
I am the funniest person I know, yes. It's true.
I don't know. Well, what do you want to know? We have 3 kids. We have a few pets.
Yeah, a few, yeah. Just a few.
Yeah, just a
Constantly
few.
multiplying.
Like bunnies.
So, one thing, and it wasn't something that we were planning on talking about, but I know, with us, when we met, I was not in ministry at all.
No.
So, when we met, I was just, okay, here's this guy, very attractive, good-looking, very funny. He's probably a stand-up comedian or something. You were probably thinking, guy. But I was a firefighter. And I don't want to say just a firefighter, but I was I worked for the fire department. I worked side job at the hospital, and the ministry is something that kind of just, bam, just happened.
Yeah.
So why don't we share a little bit about that? Because that's something that we don't really talk about a whole lot. And we got together, and then it was, you asked me something about firefighting, if that was the best job I ever had, and we never really talked about when I was in the ministry before, because I started preaching at 17, and then I became a youth pastor at 19, and for several years that was the ministry, and then did youth conferences and stuff. But at the time we met, I wasn't in ministry at all. I was actually in a period of time that I was running from God, and so that never even came up. I don't even know if it ever came up until that moment when you asked me that. But I said, no, actually,
I think it did.
the best job I ever had was as a youth pastor. And we started talking about that a little bit, and you said, well, I would support you if you ever did that. And I told you at that time, I said that would never happen, because with that, I was married before, divorced, not just once, but twice. So one that was like, especially back in the 90s stuff, that was like a big no-no with the church and stuff, divorce. So I just kind of gave up on it, and I didn't really think much about it when you said, well, if you ever want to do that, I would support you. And then it was just a couple of days later that a pastor friend of mine put on Facebook, of all places, something about, me becoming his youth pastor, and then we talked about it. So how about that? How was that, like, in that whirlwind from that moment, if you can remember back then, and then looking back from that all the way to where we're at now?
I remember very, very clearly the conversation. We were laying down in bed, and we were talking about what we would, what we would want to do. And I asked you if firefighting was your favorite job you've ever had, and you said no, it was being a youth pastor. And I had no idea about youth pastoring or church or anything. And I asked you if you'd ever want to do it again, and you said probably not. It would have to be for the right pastor. And then a couple days later, that's when you were contacted via Facebook,
Right.
and asked if you would be interested in it. And you had lunch with him, and we talked about it afterwards. And I was like, well, no, because then it was just very funny how it worked out, because you asked me what I would want to do, and I said maybe be a teacher so I could have summers off with the kids. And they were just so happened to be looking for a first grade teacher, and you told me that. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. So it was just very crazy how it happened, and I was very naive to all of that, because I did not grow up in the church. And you were like, oh, it'll be a lot of work. It'll be phone calls during the night. It'll be a lot of drama. And I was like, oh, it's okay. I love you. Whatever you want to do, I want you to be happy. There was a lot of naivety.
Yeah.
I was so naive and just had no idea what I was even saying back then. So
Right. And one thing that and a lot of people, they don't see, okay, that's Pastor Jimmy's wife, that's Julie, she's pastor's wife. And a lot of times with churches, I think Fairlawn's pretty good outside of the norm with the expectations that they put on just us in general and the pastors' wives and stuff. But there still is always that. It's like, well, this is how a pastor wife is supposed to be, which is crazy because everybody's different. And I mean, it's to say this is how a certain pastor wife needs to be is just insane. That makes it think like we just go to like the pastor's wives are us and just buy a robot pastor wife. And if only it was that easy.
Yeah.
So, but with that, what I think a lot of people don't really realize with you is, and I've always, it says a lot about you that you've never been like just coming to church and just being in the congregation.
No.
Like you got thrown into it. Like you've always been on the inside.
Yes.
Of the, and there's I don't care what church it is, there is stuff that goes on the inside. I'm not talking about corrupt stuff, but there's just stuff like it's like the phone calls, 2 a.m. phone calls, or 4 a.m. Having to leave the house or whatever it is, and it's stuff that I don't think you really know the magnitude of it until you're living in it.
Right.
And a lot of pastors' wives, they get like eased into it a little bit. It's like, okay, you grew up in the church. A lot of pastors' wives, their fathers were pastors, or something like that, or anyway. But you're the only woman I know that happened like that, where it was like you grew up Catholic, and then it's like boom, you're thrown into a church situation. You start your relationship with Christ. You get saved, everything, but it's all happened like at one time, and it's just like boom, and now you're thrown into the middle of it, and people are coming to you. I mean, at the time, granted, we were youth pastors, but still, it was like you just kind of got thrown all into it, and it's just like I can remember. I don't know if you remember this. We were only like maybe a month in, and something didn't happen like the way that we wanted to happen. You're like, I'm done. This is over. I'm not coming back. And
I don't remember what that was.
So, and then we talked about it, and I mean, man, just to think about, geez, we could talk for an hour. I think just on that of like just going down that timeline.
Yeah.
But to think like where we were then, and then how God has moved it, and just like at warp speed. I mean, it was like 5 years ago. We never thought that this would be, here at Fairlawn. And I mean, we were talking about, our daughter goes to school across the street. And we're talking about just today. We're talking about 2 years ago for open house. We parked here in the parking lot here at Fairlawn Church, not even giving it a thought that hey, who would have thought 2 years later we'd be sitting here in the sanctuary doing in the lobby, So it's really surreal with that. But and that's one thing with you, it's always it's just really stood out to me. It's just how you were thrown into it, and how you've had to adjust, and how you've had to really sacrifice, and it's definitely not. Well, it's been easy. If we did a like a reality show, the Lloyds, and all the cameras were in the house, man, that would be interesting.
Gosh.
Just a different, with the dynamics of 3 kids, and to throw all that on. Also, when we were first in the ministry, and I came back into it as youth pastor. We had the 3 kids, and for the first few months, everybody just kind of thought, okay, Jimmy and Julie, they've always been together, and all 3 kids are theirs. And people would say stuff, and I was like scared to tell them, because I was like, what are they gonna do if they find out, I've been divorced twice, and I've told that story so many times about just how once I did start sharing that weakness and that thing that I was so embarrassed about, how God's used that. But I mean, we could even do a whole segment on like just blended families. So not only were we thrown into the ministry, not only were you thrown into the ministry like that, but the kids, all 3 of them.
Yes.
And Kinsley's really the only one that from 2 years old on up, she grew up in the church, and it shows because like she walks around here like she owns the place.
Oh, yeah.
I'm surprised she's not in here doing it in the lobby.
I really am shocked.
So, but so it was a lot of adjusting, and
Yes. Still is.
For anybody that's a step parent out there, that the blended families are not easy. No, any family is not easy. I mean, it takes work. Anything worth having takes work. It don't just happen. So many people think like marriage, it's like, and it should be easy because we're in love, and it's like, well, no. If it's anything that's worth having, it takes work. So and it's been some work within the family, just keeping that together. And even with that, if we had video cameras and showed a timeline about like from 5 years ago where our family was to now, I mean, wow, it'd be kind of cool, for that. I don't know if we would be able to watch it.
No. I don't know. Probably not.
But God's brought us so far with that. So I wanted to share that before we kind of get into everything else about that, because of just knowing that. And also, you do the animal ministry here at Fairlawn, which your email address is the Helping Hand Animal Ministries, Julie.
helpinghandanimals@gmail.com.
Yes. So with that, and then mine is jimmy.fairlawnchurch@gmail.com. I think Brandon's going to throw those down there, so see them. So and also, you are kind of like our freelance designer. Like
Yes.
I got the cup right here, the In the Lobby cup. Here, when Mark decides to come back, he has one waiting for him.
Mark, he tried to get me to use your cup, but I have too much respect for you. I didn't do it.
She was just afraid that that Mark maybe drank out of it.
No, I was not.
Let's see, our name right there, Jimmy. Julie designed these, and then our In the Lobby. We got the new one, the black backdrop, so we don't have all that white pulling it in there. And then on our shirts, our FC, also designed by Julie. So yeah. Thank goodness we don't have to pay you for that. just freebies.
Yeah.
But you do that. So there's a lot of stuff though that you're involved with here at the church that people don't even know. Like, how many times have it's been like, preparing a message or whatever. Hey, baby, look this up, or hey, check. So, send this email for me. Do this, So it's kind of you there in the background, and I think whether you're a pastor or not, it's when you're married. I mean, it is you and your spouse, your husband, your wife, your team stuff, and I think sometimes we forget that, and then as a husband and wife, I mean, with being around each other and stuff, it kind of feels like that the person closest to you is the one that fights against you and stuff like that.
That's
and
true.
It's which communication is always the key to that. And I wish I could say we always had the best communication, but there's times we get into that too. So, we're human.
Yes.
And that happens. So the main subject that we talked about sharing is kind of what we touched on, but just being married in the ministry.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I've talked to you about it a lot. I think that it'd be great for like if you had a podcast or something that just like for pastors' wives, because so often I feel like pastors' wives are afraid to share, how they really feel. And one thing that I've heard a lot is, people say, I love your wife, and she's not like just a typical pastor's wife. And I can say that's one thing that you definitely are not a typical pastor's wife.
I do not want to be. I like me.
Yes. And so, and that's what's so great about you is that you're you. But why don't we start with that? I've been talking a lot, so why don't just some of the struggles and stuff, and I don't want to say struggles. So there has been struggles, but just some of the obstacles that go on as being a pastor's wife and being kind of thrown into the ministry, and just some of the things that you have thought of and gone through and processed, and your journey.
Wow. Okay. Well, I actually did my podcast that I did for my school that I chose to do on being a pastor's wife. And, it was very, very honest, and it was, how I felt. And especially at the time, because it was kind of like a diary for me, because I just was expressing how I was feeling at the time, going through a lot of stuff. Because coming from where I came from and not having ever been really in church, other than like going up through, I don't know, 4th grade, 5th grade, and Catholic school, I never really had to go to church. So my Wednesdays weren't set, my Saturdays weren't set, my Sundays weren't set. I just didn't have something I had to do every, few days of the week. So that was extremely tough, and I still really I have to have a separation of that so I don't get overwhelmed in the church, because it is a lot when you aren't used to it. And having to share you with like hundreds of people, that's really hard too, because we'll be sitting there just having dinner or watching a TV show or whatever we're doing, and your wrist vibrates. And I'm like, okay. And then your phone rings. I'm like, okay. And, you're on the phone for like ever. So, and those are things that I will never get used to. I don't like to share you with all those people and then having to share you with all of our kids and with the fire department. It's very hard. It's definitely not something that I want to do at all. I don't like it.
I've shared it with several people. And one thing, I can't ever think of a time in our marriage where you have been like jealous over, like another woman or anything like that. But one thing that you have been very jealous of is my time.
Yes.
And we've had to, and we're still working on, but it took a little bit of God kind of dealing with me to just say, with us planning a schedule, and with a lot, like with us, we're the opposite on all stuff. We're a lot alike on some things, but the opposite. And like with me, it's usually stuff doing like spontaneously and stuff like that. It's not a big deal. But with you, it's like, I was planning everything to be like this, and then this happened. I was planning A, B, C, but then it became A, B, Z, and it's like, oh my gosh, and something inside of you is like, freaking out. So one thing that we've done for the past, a few months, and there's been exceptions and stuff, but it's just taken Tuesdays off, and it's been something that there's had to been communication, because there's been times it's like, we're supposed to be spending Tuesdays together, but then this happens at the church, or then this happens, and I think this past Tuesday was the first time where, because you said something, and you probably have said it to me several times before, but it just clicked, and like I took off my watch, and because before I got put it on the phone, but then my wrist vibrates, and it's weird. Before I didn't even wear watches, and then a few years ago from Blueprint they got me the Apple Watch, and now it's like I feel naked if I don't have my Apple Watch on.
Yeah.
So taking that off and doing that, that's, and the people in the church and in the office and stuff, I think they do well with respecting that. Tuesdays are, hey, is Jimmy and Julie's day, and there's still stuff that happens, stuff that comes up, and we understand. But that's one thing. It has been, and you've expressed it before. It's like it's difficult sharing my husband's time with that, and it's not just. It's really just like it's every day. It's not just like, okay, it's just Sundays, or just Wednesdays.
It's every day.
It's every day, because there's always stuff going on. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's just part of being a pastor. You have a pastor's heart, and people are just drawn to you, and there's nothing that I would want to do to change that, because people need you. They'd be a lot of people. You've changed their lives, and I've seen it. I've witnessed it, and I would never want to take that away from them. But it does suck when we're planning a date or we're planning something, and you get a phone call, and you're like on a phone call for like an hour or 20 minutes.
So let me ask you this. So I know the answer, but with it, so is there ever times, because pretty much our whole marriage we've been in ministry, And then on top of that is every third day at the fire department, I'm gone for 24 hours. But is there ever times where it's just like, you're like, man, I wish he just was a firefighter. I just wish for the fire department. Has that crossed your mind?
A lot.
Yeah.
All the time, really. At least once a week.
Once a
Maybe
week.
twice.
Wow. Twice a week.
Yeah, it does. It crossed my mind a lot because I'm overwhelmed a lot because think about it. We literally met in August of 2015 and we got married in April of 2016 and we went into ministry April 2016. So we really have only gotten 6 months together? Where we could maybe be married and not have all these extra responsibilities, because when you were a firefighter, you just came home and that was it.
Yeah.
And now you have this whole other job where other people depend on you, even when you're at home. And it's not just me, it's not just the kids, it's hundreds of people. So it is very hard. And I do wish that I would have never asked you that question, is firefighting your favorite job? Because sometimes I do regret that answer.
Yeah. How do you think, though, so with that, because I know before you've talked, and you're actually one that has said it, is this is, with pastoring, this is what you were created to do. This is what you're called to do. I remember you saying that to me.
Yes.
So, and I know we've talked about it, because there was one point back when we were youth pastors where I did resign in our marriage, and it ended up only being a 1 month thing. But it was just this, my marriage, and it always will be my marriage and my family. That's first. That's I know there's times it don't look like that, but there was a time when that happened. With that, though, with you seeing that, so that has to be sometimes a struggle with you, though, because it's okay, I know this is what he was called to do, but I wish he didn't do it, So how do you deal with that? How is that
I don't deal with it. People look at me all the time and they see my face, they see my reactions, they see I withdraw a lot of times because it's upsetting. I don't know how to handle that because you're so different. I do love people and I enjoy, having conversations with people and helping people. I mean, that's why I started the Helping Hand, but I am very jealous when it comes to my time with you, and it sucks when I have to share you with people. And I don't know how to handle those feelings, so a lot of time I'm just withdrawn and I just kind of go into a corner and just play out the motions of what I'm supposed to do.
Well, I have throughout the time here at Fairlawn, we're on our second year now with that.
It's crazy to think that's been almost a little over a year.
And I remember when we were first offered the position and coming here, and we talked about it, and I told you, I said, if this isn't something that you feel like you could handle, that you want to do, you were not going to do it. And your response, I don't know if you remember it, but it was there's no way I could say no. It's what
I would never.
You're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
So that's taken sacrifice. I don't think anybody, unless you are a pastor's wife, or maybe if you were a pastor's kid or something, you might kind of know. But I don't know that just regular people in the congregation or out there really realize the sacrifices that a pastor's spouse. And I don't want to just say pastor's wife, because there are women pastors out there too, where it's the opposite, and it's the husband. So I don't know if people really will ever fully grasp what the sacrifices that not only the wife but the kids too, because it takes me away from the kids, and then a lot of times it puts that on you, back on you with doing that. And so and I feel like with the kids, I'm very hands-on with that, and the kids are really, all three of them right now are have been working in the church and helping with the church and stuff like that. It's become a big part of their lives, but it's taken some time even with that.
Yeah.
So I don't know that anybody ever. I don't know that just normally. And I think that's why I believe it's important for you to share that, because so that not just so that it's like, okay, people, so they know, hey, how much I sacrifice, so for a pat on the back. But, I know that there is a lot of spouses that are in the ministry that feel the same way, and they feel like they're all alone and they don't have anybody to talk to. So that's the reason I was really excited when you said, hey, I'd like to do it in the lobby with you sometime, and it just kind of worked out for this week. But I was excited about it because it's like there's a voice in you that needs to be, for it to be heard. And I believe that God has, He's created you the way that He has, but it's also, you can minister to so many other spouses out there that are going through that same thing and doing that. And not to where it's like, okay, we got all the answers, because obviously through this conversation, it's very, like, none of this was scripted, so it's very real of just you sharing, hey, I'm still dealing with this, or even when I asked you, how do you deal with it, it's like, I don't, so so it's not just, okay, we accomplished this is done, now we're here and we can counsel and tell everybody else and write a book about the 7 ways to be married in ministry.
There's no answer that is going to be the correct answer for how to be married in ministry, because
So-
everybody's marriage is different.
Right. So through that, I'm saying we're not here, obviously not saying, hey, we have all the answers, because we don't. But I believe that there's just, with you, it's so important for your voice to be heard and for you to be there. And, that's one thing, with doing the podcast that you did for school, and there was only like a really handful of people that heard it. But, I mean, it was as real as it gets. And I think that's so needed, because there's so much fake within the church. And especially growing up in it, I've seen a lot of it. And, like, there's nothing fake about you. Like, you are as real as it gets. Like, it's so, and with that, people need to see that, and hear that. Say, hey, I don't have to be this certain way. And for pastors and husbands or anybody, it's like there's been trying to figure out the best way to put it, but there's been times with things. It's like, man, I just wish Julie was like the typical pastor's wife, and then it just. But I really don't. But in that moment, like, the enemy starts messing with me, and it's like, man. But I think as pastors, it's too. We kind of at times, expect our wives just to kind of fall into that, our spouse fall into that certain category.
Yeah.
And then that just brings resentment.
Yeah, it does. There's a lot of, I have a lot of resentment, towards church in general. And that's why I told you that I could never tell you not to take the job at Fairlawn, because I knew that it was something that you were called to do. And I felt like that you would have resented me forever, because you would have always asked, well, what if I would have done this? And the only reason I didn't do this is because you didn't want me to do this. And, I don't ever want to be the person that keeps you from, your calling. But I don't know. I don't know that. Everybody says that God calls, a couple as a husband and wife, but I don't ever feel like I was called into the church as a pastor's wife.
So with that, so there's times that we have done stuff. And where are we at on time, Brandon?
34 minutes.
No, we're good.
Okay.
I feel like I've been talking forever.
You have.
Like, this is like way more real than when Mark and I is real, but this is like, okay, because it hits home, and not that this is not stuff that we haven't talked about before, but with that, why do you can you go into that a little bit about not feeling like, because you've expressed, you feel like, you're supposed to be my wife. Mm-hmm. And then you've also expressed, there's no doubt God's called you. This is what you're supposed to be doing. So maybe kind of go into that a little bit of just your thought process, and with that is like, okay, I don't feel. Why is it that you don't feel like you're called into being a pastor's wife? Is it because you feel like there's a certain stigma with that, or like just can you go into that a little bit?
I definitely think there's a stigma. People often, they tell me, oh, you're a pastor's wife, you're a pastor's wife. And I tell them right back, well, my husband's a pastor. I don't like to refer to myself as a pastor's wife because I don't feel like a pastor's wife. I mean, I do in a sense that I share you with all the hundreds of people that I do, but I don't feel like I don't feel like I'm pulled into the church. And it's not anything that anyone has not made me feel, because everyone has always been so welcoming to me in every church that we've been to. But I just don't. I don't have that feeling that that you have, and it's probably because I don't have a pastor's heart, But I don't know. I don't feel like, I look around sometimes on Sundays and I'm like, all these people come here because they want to be here. And I feel like sometimes I come because I'm expected to come, not because I want to be here. But when I do get here, I love, being here and fellowshipping with everybody. But it's like I've always felt like I'm just expected to be at church, not that I want to be at church. And so I think a lot of it, where I'm just, so much is expected of me to feel a certain way, and I just don't.
Yeah, I mean, that has to be a struggle is with that, because you've never like really been allowed to even know like if you want to come to church or not,
Yeah.
because it's kind of been like, okay, I need to. Mm-hmm. It always says a lot to me is when, we have two services here at Fairlawn. We have a 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. on Sundays. And, it happens actually quite often is, you walk in the middle of the first service, mm-hmm. and it's like, okay, I just get that. It's like, I know she wants to be here, because that's one thing, that hasn't been expected. So it's like, okay, I know that, she wants to be here for that. And it's kind of cool to see that.
Mm-hmm. I come most of the time just so I can sit with you.
Yeah. So
Mostly it. And, well, sometimes I like to listen to other people speak. They're not nearly as good as you, though.
No, yeah. You're not telling anybody anything they don't know. So, yeah. Duh. Captain Obvious. So what are some things that we've done with this? Because obviously, it's with throwing it out there, it's still something that is a struggle. And for people that don't know, we were youth pastors at a church, and then we went from that to starting the Blueprint Experience, which was what we had on Saturday nights. And
we went from youth to our home group, and we did that for quite a bit of time, like almost 8 months. And that's where I was my happiest in ministry.
Yeah, in the home group.
Yes. I like small groups of people when it's very intimate and casual. I don't like the whole big service thing is just not, I don't feel comfortable as I did just sitting in our room worshiping and talking. But
they're even with that, and of course, that's why I love home groups, because it is so intimate. And I was telling someone not too long ago, they started a church, and it's in a living room, and they were asking me, because that's how we started the Blueprint, and they were asking me, how do we get it where, people take worship, I don't say serious, but, everybody's just kind of sitting around and stuff. And my biggest advice to them is don't try to make the church at home like a church in the sanctuary, because there's something about that. There's a need for that too, and that's why, my heart is always going to go, is towards, home groups, because it gives you the opportunity to be intimate. Instead of having 100 people, you have 10 or 15. And with our home group, the reason it started getting to where we were like sardines in our house, and it's like, okay, we got to do something, and that's kind of how the Blueprint kind of came out of that. And out of the home group, came out like the core leadership team from the Blueprint, which and then through that, most of us are still together with here at
Fairlawn,
Fairlawn. So
yeah.
it's kind of cool to see that, and a group of people that I really feel like God put us together with to do ministry. But with there's something that that intimacy where it's it is there for the home groups, and I think it is so important. Right now here at Fairlawn, we don't have. I think we may have one home group going on right now, but it's not a big ministry, which I would love to see that happen, because that is the time where you really can fellowship and bond with people and stuff like that. Now, with saying that, I think it's because people talk a lot of times about, with me being on stage and especially like with the camera and stuff. What people don't know a lot of times, they're like, "Man, you are like a natural in front of the camera." Here in the lobby is a little different because we just go through straight, and I can't be like, cut, let's redo that. But like those other short little videos, what people don't see is like it's like on take number 20.
Oh, yes.
So but I've seen it, and other people have. Like, you do have a good stage presence too. Especially there's been times back with the Blueprint, we used to do what we called hosting.
Yeah.
And we'd get up there and we'd do games and stuff before church, and we've talked about possibly maybe eventually doing that here at Fairlawn too. But there's times that I've seen you like in your element in front of like a larger group, and it's cool to see that too. So I think sometimes you don't give yourself enough credit with that, because it's I like little small crowds, and maybe I don't know, maybe it's because we're up there doing it together. I don't know, but you do really well with that. You definitely are in your element, like when the small groups, just like when we do the ladies brunches, and stuff. And I'm here doing stuff around the church, but I see that, and the fellowship. That's where some of the women in the church have gotten to know you and things like that. And then even before church and after church, you just spending one-on-one time, and I mean that is where you thrive, because I know I like spending one-on-one time with you. So maybe a little later we'll get a little more one-on-one. No.
We have way too many open houses and stuff to do tonight, baby. And a dishwasher to install. Maybe if you get that dishwasher put in, we can spend some one-on-one time.
All right, guys, that's it for in the lobby. We're yeah. All right. Yeah, see what she did there? Yeah. Now that dishwasher definitely going to get installed. That's it.
I needed it installed, guys.
So with that, I wanted to share in Ephesians chapter 5, 25, 33, it goes into husbands and wives, and I had it here. I got it on the screen here, so I'm going to read it first. And this version, what version is this here? This is probably...
It's not the Passion.
I'm going to read it in the Passion, but this is probably, they don't say right here, but it's probably New King James. It says, Ephesians 5:25, it says, for husbands, this means love your wives just as Christ loved the church. He gave up his life for her, talking about the church. And then in the Passion Translation, how it says, and to the husbands, you are to demonstrate love for your wives with the same tender devotion that Christ demonstrated to us, his bride. And especially with us, husbands in general, I mean, I don't want to just, there's people that's watching this and they're like, well, this isn't for me. I'm not in ministry. I'm not a pastor. But just in general, sometimes we kind of forget that, we're supposed to love our wives like Christ loved the church, and who he gave his life up for. He still loved people and asked his Father to forgive people that spit in his face and slapped him in the face. I was reading scripture just the other day, how the Passion Translation puts it is, they spit in his face, slapped him in the face, and then other of the Pharisees punched him in the face. I'm like, man, that is like extreme. And he still just took it and said, I'm still dying for you. And
It's love.
it's definitely 100% true love. And I'm not ever saying it. One thing I'm not saying is any husbands or wives, God's not wanting you to be a punching bag. So don't think, okay, I just need to take, that's not what I'm saying at all. But, there's times we kind of forget that, we're supposed to love our wives like Christ loved the church. And not how Jimmy loved the church, and Jimmy, it's not Jimmy, you need to love the church like Christ loved the church. I'm supposed to love my wife. I'm supposed to love you like Christ loved the church. And there's times for 100% that I forget that, and I don't. And then the next one I wanted to read, the next Bible verse is let's see, it's Colossians 3:19, and reading that in the Passion Translation is, I should have marked these.
Is it not?
It is. This is let every husband be filled with cherishing love for his wife, and never be insensitive towards her. And that, I don't know if there's any husband other than my granddaddy. He might could read that and not feel convicted. But I don't know if there's any husband that can read that and not feel some conviction. It's like, never be insensitive. Like, I mean, there's some times I've been insensitive. There's times, it's so. I mean, there's a mandate. There is of how husbands are supposed to love their wives, and the opposite too. How wives are supposed to love their husbands. But me being a husband, just pointing that out, like my number one ministry, it should be you. And there's definitely been times where I failed to show you that, and I've asked for your forgiveness on it before. You always do. You always do that, and that's part of marriage, is just constantly forgiving each other before they even ask. But I'm 100%. There's been times that I kind of forget that, and then God kind of has to take me on this journey and show me, all right, Jimmy, you're wrong. And I was teasing somebody the other day, just yesterday, with somebody on staff, and I was telling a story, and I was like, Julie, it was like something that we had like talked about, like, and not like in something as serious as this, just a story, and you're like, I think that the story went like this, and I was like, no, it went like this, and then that person told me the story, and I was like, oh my goodness, I'm gonna have to go to Julie now and tell her she was right.
Oh, what was the story?
We'll talk about it later, but you would know. You'd be like, oh yeah, it's not that big of a deal. And then it was actually the pastor that we sat under as youth pastors. One thing that he said that has always stuck out to me is that the husbands, that your wife is your garden, and you're the gardener, not. The husband's not the wife's garden, because you're like, well, how about me, but, if we're supposed to love our wives like Christ loved the church, I mean, I never saw a time where Jesus was like, when are these people going to start doing stuff for me? It's never. So with that, as husbands, our wives are our garden. And something that he said all the time is, if there's weeds in your garden, you're obviously not taking care of your garden. You're off, if we, neither one of us are big gardeners at all, but, if you plant a garden, whether it's flowers, fruit, or whatever, if you just throw those seeds down there and then you walk away, it's going to be very rare, unless maybe some tomatoes, which tomatoes are gross.
Banana trees.
Banana trees, yeah. But it's really hard to just throw seeds down and for it to produce any fruit.
Right.
But we know people, we know there's one lady in our church that that is like her calling to be a gardener. And like everything she touches like just grows, but but we've seen her. She spent hours, even stuff here at the church, hours taking care of stuff, and then we see the end result of that, which is something beautiful. But it didn't just happen, just overnight. It was taking care of it, and that's something that has stuck with me for the past, say, 5 years or throughout our marriage, is that you are my garden. God's given me you to take care of you with that. And at times, is if there's weeds in my garden or if it's not producing fruit or something, I need to go back and look at Jimmy and say, am I doing what I need to do as a gardener with this? So that's something that has helped me over and over again is just, my wife is my garden, and I need to take care of it. And how do I do that? Well, spending time with you and us spending time. I mean, I will say we do often, but I know you're going to say not often enough. It's just in the mornings, waking up, drinking coffee, and
Yeah,
just
we don't do
talking.
it enough. That's my
And-
favorite thing.
Yeah. So, and with that, we do devotions together. Or sometimes we'll just sit there and talk. And, but your garden's not going to produce fruit if you don't spend any time in it, taking care of it, and doing that. So, and not that's the only time we spend together. But, you've made the comment is your day just it seems everything just kind of goes by better when that happens. When we do that. So I think that's important. And I wanted to share that for any husbands, whether you're in ministry, not in ministry, looking at it as, your wife is your garden, to take care of it and to do that. And then if you do that, then when that fruit comes up, when you have a garden and it's producing fruit, then the garden takes care of you because you get to go out there and eat that fruit, whatever fruit it is. It's not a sexual reference. I know that's what you're thinking. It's not at all. So, but it does. Like then it comes back, and the garden nourishes you and gives you what you need because you took care of that garden. So, and then also that happens, too. It's like as a husband or as a spouse, it's like, well, something's wrong with this soil. It's not producing anything. So then you go and you get another garden, and it happens a lot of times. It's like, man, this garden has weeds too. Like, well, yeah, let's look at the gardener a little bit, not just the gardens here. So, no, I just think that's important too. I just wanted everybody to know that. So, what are some things, just as we wrap up, what are some things that as a married couple in ministry, and even I think this will help people out of ministry too, because I think that's always, communication and spending time together is always a struggle. But what are some things that's worked, and what are some things that's not worked?
You're terrible at time management, so that doesn't work. But I think scheduling is good. I think having in our calendar that we're going to spend this day together, and we have been trying to take every quarter we'll try to go away for a few days and just take some time away from church, kids, school and stuff like that, and that works because we are able to kind of just reboot our love tanks, I guess you could say, and so that works. It really is hard because you aren't a timely person. You're like, oh, I'll be home by this and this time, and I'm like 3 hours later, you're still not home, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to bed. So I don't know, it's hard, for us in that sense, because if you're here during the day, then I don't plan on you being home at night because you just get stuck here. So I'm not sure, that doesn't work at all for us. But just having that set time where we don't come into the church, and we don't come in and do this. We take time away from the kids and stuff. I mean, that's really the only thing that's been working for us is just having that day, which is going to move to Fridays now because
Right. And so with that, I know just last week we took not just the one day, we took 4 days, and just spent together, and which it seems like when we do have those days to spend together, we end up doing stuff, but we're doing it together. Like we put furniture together and painted
Painted our
and stuff
room.
like that. I know with me, I am. It's one of those things. It's like you constantly work on it. Is time management. And anybody that knows me, they're like, yeah, he's terrible at time management, and I am. With saying that, back when I was in my 20s and 30s, I was even worse. So with that, it's it's something that I think it's something that I'm going to constantly, be struggling with. But one thing that's helped with me is I'm not great at time management, but you are better with it. So thank God for this thing called Google Calendar that we share stuff.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's been times where you had to be like, well, this isn't in the calendar, but that's helped. And just you do just you keeping me.
Yeah, and I look really
Interesting.
mean when I'm doing it. I'm like, okay, baby, let's go, let's go, let's go. And have to go sometimes with you places so I can make sure that you leave somewhere on a certain time. And I
Well-
look like a meanie when I am pulling you away.
Well, I think it's no secret that in this marriage, like, I'm the nice guy and you're the mean person. Every marriage has to have a nice guy and a mean one, and that's you. So
That is actually really accurate.
no, I'm just kidding. But sometimes even with me with needing that, I think that's one thing that has worked. And even with that, there's a lot of times where there's sacrifice with you. But I mean, there's been times like me getting up, going to the fire station, like you've woken up at 5 o'clock in the morning with me, and we've had coffee then. And but it's still that spending time. And one thing that I love about you is like you're like, I want to spend time with you, but it's not always like, so you need to come and spend time with me. It's like you've made sacrifices, or you've found ways for us to spend time together too, like waking up at 5 in the morning. And you are not a morning person at all, but is that important to you, where it's like, okay, I'm this is what I need to do. And with that, and there's times where just us FaceTiming each other even when we're not together, and doing devotions and praying together and things like that. And just being on the same page. And there's times where we've got off the page, and you've been on this page over here, and I've been away on this page, totally different books. But, it's taken one of us to say, hey, you know what, we need to get back, on the same page. And and there's been times where we both have played that role of that. But we've always respected each other, where it's like, okay, I didn't really realize that we were on the same page. And then we've gotten back on it. And that's probably something, just going through marriage. Hey, man, geez, I think the divorce rate in the world is the same as the church. Like, there's no difference, which is a shame, but there's no difference. It's the same exact percentage. So it's, this marriage thing's not easy.
No.
It's not like, oh, we loved each other, and that's it. No, it
And you add
takes
in
work
church,
too.
and then you add in a blended family, and whew.
They have, within the top 5 occupations that you're divorced, like firefighter is like number 2 or number 3 somewhere, and paramedics in that too. But they have a separate. I'm a firefighter and paramedic. But then, which can be surprising or not surprising if you've been in ministry, pastor's number 5.
Oh, wow.
So it's like, out of that, I have 3 occupations that are in that. And then you throw on top of that is the more times people think, well, okay, well, my next marriage is going to be better. Well, no, the divorce rate in the second marriage is worse, and then the third marriage is worse. And so you add all that, it's like, man, the cards are stacked up against us. But I think with just any marriage or any relationship, and even like friendships and stuff, it takes work for relationships. Relationships with your kids, relationships with your spouse, relationship with your friends, with your coworkers. I mean, it takes work. And if anybody's expecting just a relationship just to work, or just to kind of fall into place and never be anywhere, I think you're probably fooling yourselves. And if you're like, well, no, I got a relationship with this one person, it's not any work. Well, it's probably because that other person's doing like twice as much work, so that you don't, that's why it feels like it's not. But yeah, man, relationships take work.
They do.
And if it's important, anything worth having is going to take work.
Yeah.
And there's no doubt you're definitely worth having. And
Aw, thanks, baby.
so, and I love you, and we tell each other that often, but there's no way that I would be where I'm at, or even be doing any of this without you. And I think it just says so much, one, that you came on this in the lobby, and like I said, there's one thing Julie's never, and that's fake. But just saying how it is, like, it's funny. Anytime like you get the microphone, I'm like, oh, am I gonna have to fix this? and I never do. It's God always just works it out, and He puts the right things. But it's really been cool to see, like, even I think the stuff that God has showed me and stuff that I've noticed that God doing it within you that you probably don't even realize. It's been really cool to see that, and I constantly thank God that I get like a front row seat to that. Like,
Thanks, baby.
and it's just really awesome. And I for me, I can't wait to see what God's going to continue to do in your life and your ministry, and of course us together as a us as a family with all 5 of us. But I just want to tell you, and for everybody, thank you for all you do and just loving me the way you do, and just constantly having my back and us just walking through this thing together. So thank you.
Oh, yeah, make me cry.
So
Well, I also want to add this is that I am able to come up here and like speak the truth and speak how I feel because you don't have expectations for me. And so I don't have to be the typical pastor's wife. And you allow me to feel how I feel and not feel it in secret. And so I appreciate that because I can't imagine having the feelings that I feel and not being able to talk to anyone about it because I have to feel shamed for feeling it. So
yeah.
I appreciate that you let me be who I am and you let me be that person even in church.
Yeah.
So thank you. And I love you.
Love you. So, all right, guys. I got a dishwasher to install, so I'll just tell you guys, thank you so much for tuning in and for in the lobby, and hope to see everybody this Sunday, either 9 a.m. or 11 a.m.
Or both.
Or both. You can come, and always big advocate on that is coming and sitting through both of them. Brandon sits through both of them. You can join Brandon for both
Or
services.
me. I'll probably come for both.
So I'll be speaking this Sunday. So at this moment, I have no idea what I'm speaking on. Well, I kind of have an idea, but I'm not sure. The message hasn't been written yet. But anyways, guys, thank you so much. If you are a part of the Farallon family, thank you for doing life and ministry with the Lloyds, and especially big thank you and shout out to the Acox for doing that because they got 2 Lloyds to have to deal. Well, really 5, but they got especially us, and that was definitely a relationship and a friendship that God put together because there's been times where we've cried on their shoulders, they've cried on ours, and just it's really cool that God put us all together. So big thank you and shout out to the Acox. And
We love our
next week I should be doing this with Mark. He should be back. If he gets back from his vacation in Hawaii, But anyways, all right. Thank you guys, and look forward to seeing you on Sunday. All right, love y'all.